Welcome everyone to a journey of enlightenment as we explore the middle way in Buddhism. Buddhism, a spiritual tradition born in the East, has touched every corner of the globe with its timeless wisdom. It's not just a religion but a way of life, guiding millions on a path towards inner peace and understanding. And at the heart of this path lies a unique concept known as the middle way. A fundamental teaching in Buddhism, the middle way encourages a balanced approach to life, steering clear of both excessive indulgence and severe austerity. It's about harmony, equilibrium, and experiencing life in all its fullness, without being swayed by its extremes. But what does it truly mean to walk the middle way? How does it shape the Buddhist understanding of life, and how can we incorporate it into our daily lives? These are the questions we'll be exploring in this journey, so buckle up as we journey down the path of the middle way in Buddhism. The middle way has a fascinating origin that dates back to the time of the Buddha himself. The middle way, or Madhyama Pratipad in Sanskrit, is deeply rooted in the life journey of Siddhartha Gautama, who later became known as the Buddha. His journey to enlightenment is a tale of extremes, a pendulum that swung from one end of life's spectrum to the other, before finally finding balance in the middle. Born into royalty, Siddhartha led a life of extreme luxury and indulgence, shielded from the harsh realities of life. However, upon encountering the suffering of the world outside his palace walls, he was profoundly moved. He then chose to renounce his lavish lifestyle, opting for a life of extreme austerity and self-denial instead. He became an ascetic, subjecting himself to intense practices and severe self-deprivation. He meditated intensely, fasted frequently, and lived a life of complete solitude. But despite all his efforts, he did not find the liberation he sought. He was neither happy nor enlightened. In this state of dissatisfaction, Siddhartha had an epiphany. He realized that neither extreme, the excess of his royal life, nor the deficiency of his ascetic life, had brought him the peace he yearned for. He concluded that the path to enlightenment lay somewhere in between these extremes, so he chose to follow a new path, a path that was neither excessive nor deficient. He began to practice moderation, steering clear from both self-indulgence and self-mortification. He ate nourishing food to regain his strength, and meditated with a calm and focused mind. In this balanced state, Siddhartha finally achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, becoming the Buddha, the awakened one. He realized the truth of suffering and the path to its cessation, which he later encapsulated in the Four Noble Truths. This path of balance, of avoiding extremes, is what the Buddha called the middle way. It was a path born out of his own experiences and insights. Thus, the middle way was born out of Buddha's own experiences and enlightenment. Now, what exactly does the middle way mean? This is a question many of us often ponder. The middle way, in the context of Buddhism, is a path of moderation. It's a journey that veers away from the extremes of self-indulgence on one end and self-mortification on the other. It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance which leads to enlightenment. Picture a tightrope walker. They can't lean too heavily to one side or they'll fall. The middle way is like that tightrope. It's an equilibrium, a harmonious blend of our human needs and spiritual aspirations. Now you may wonder why Buddhism emphasizes this path of moderation. The answer lies in the Buddha's own life. Before attaining enlightenment, he experienced the extremes. He lived a life of luxury, indulging his every whim, only to realize that it led to suffering. He then turned to the other extreme, denying himself of all worldly pleasures, and found that it too led to suffering. The middle way then emerged from the Buddha's lived experiences. It's a path that encourages us to avoid the pitfalls of these extremes. But how does this ancient concept translate to the modern world? Well, it's more relevant today than ever. In our fast-paced, consumer-driven society, we often find ourselves swinging between indulgence and deprivation. We overwork, overeat, overspend, only to swing back to the other end, where we deprive ourselves in the name of discipline or austerity. This constant swinging can lead to stress, dissatisfaction, and unfulfillment. The middle way invites us to pause, to reflect, to find our equilibrium amidst the chaos. It encourages us to pursue a balanced lifestyle, one that nurtures our body, mind, and spirit in equal measure. It's not about denying our desires, nor about giving in to them mindlessly. It's about understanding our needs, acknowledging our desires, and making mindful choices. In essence, the middle way is about balance, about finding a path that avoids extremes. It's about walking that tightrope with grace and mindfulness, leading us towards a life of fulfillment and enlightenment. The middle way is intrinsically linked to the Four Noble Truths, another core teaching in Buddhism. This connection becomes clear as we delve into these fundamental truths. The first noble truth is the truth of suffering. In life, suffering is inevitable. It comes in many forms: physical pain, emotional distress, the anxiety of inevitable change, or the dissatisfaction from the imperfections of life. The middle way teaches us to accept this truth, not to be overwhelmed by it, but to understand it as a part of existence. The second noble truth is the truth of the origin of suffering. Our suffering stems from our desires, our cravings, our attachments. We yearn for things that are ephemeral, constantly changing, and ultimately unsatisfying. The middle way encourages us to recognize these desires and their transient nature. The third noble truth is the truth of the cessation of suffering. There is a way to end this suffering, a path to liberation. This is where the middle way becomes truly indispensable. It provides a balanced approach, steering clear of both self-indulgence and self-denial, leading us towards the cessation of suffering. Finally, the fourth noble truth is the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This path is none other than the Eightfold Path, which is essentially an elaboration of the middle way. It includes right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The middle way, therefore, is not merely a philosophical concept but a practical guide to life. It helps us navigate the complexities of existence, understand the nature of our suffering, and chart a course towards liberation. By following the middle way, we can cultivate a deeper understanding of the Four Noble Truths. We learn to accept the reality of suffering, understand its origins, and work towards its cessation by walking the Eightfold Path. By following the middle way, one can truly comprehend and live by the Four Noble Truths. So, how can we incorporate the middle way in our daily lives? The middle way, as taught by Buddha, is a path of moderation and balance, steering clear of extremes. You might be wondering, how can I apply this in my day-to-day life? Let's start with the morning routine. Instead of rushing into the day, take a moment to find balance. Perhaps instead of drinking 5 cups of coffee, try having just 1 or 2. Instead of skipping breakfast, make time for a nourishing meal. It's about finding a healthy balance that's neither too much nor too little. Another practical example is in our communication. It's easy to swing between speaking too much or too little. The middle way encourages us to find a balance, to speak when necessary and listen when required. It's about being mindful of our words and their impact on others. The middle way also applies to our emotions. Life can often feel like a roller coaster of highs and lows, but the middle way teaches us to acknowledge these feelings without becoming consumed by them. It's about finding emotional equilibrium. In our relationships, the middle way can help us avoid the extremes of clinging too tightly or pushing others away. Instead, it encourages us to foster healthy connections based on respect, understanding, and mutual growth. At work, the middle way can be a guide to finding balance between ambition and contentment. It's not about abandoning your goals, but pursuing them in a way that doesn't compromise your peace and well-being. And finally, in our pursuit of happiness, the middle way reminds us that true contentment comes not from external possessions or achievements, but from inner peace and balance. It encourages us to find joy in the simple things and cultivate a sense of gratitude for what we have. The middle way, therefore, is not just a philosophical concept, but a practical guide that can lead us to a more balanced and fulfilling life. We've journeyed through the concept of the middle way, its origins, meaning, and practical applications. We've delved into its birth from the teachings of Buddha and its significant role in shaping the philosophy of Buddhism. This path of moderation, avoiding both the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification, forms the very heart of Buddhism. We further explored how the middle way is intricately connected to the Four Noble Truths, leading to the ultimate goal of liberation from suffering. Its application in our daily lives, as we've discussed, can result in a more balanced, peaceful existence, free from the shackles of desire and aversion. Revisiting these key points, we understand the profound impact of the middle way, not just within the realm of Buddhism, but in navigating the complexities of life itself. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey. Remember, the middle way is not a destination, but a journey towards balance and peace. Stay tuned for more enlightening videos, and until then, tread the middle way.